Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So for today's video, I've picked out 6 of the best nano aquarium plants that you can get for your aquarium. So all 6 of these plants are obviously very small growing. They don't grow too big, which means they are perfect for any smaller size setup. And on top of them being very small species, they're also very easy to care for, and a lot of them are perfect beginner plants. They require little to no effort when it comes to growing them. And yeah, they're just great beginner nano aquarium plants. So I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first plant on our list. So as for our first plant today, we have a very iconic beginner aquarium plant. We have Anubius. Now in particular, the dwarf varieties of Anubius, so things like Anubius Nana and Nana Petite, and I also think there's stuff like Pinto and all that, which are pretty small species of Anubius. They don't get very big, which means they can go perfectly fine in a nano aquarium. Now obviously, like I said, this stuff is a great beginner plant. It's literally one of the only bulletproof aquarium plants out there. You can do pretty much anything to it and it'll keep growing. I've got some Anubius behind me here. I'm pretty sure it is some sort of dwarf variety. I don't know what sort of Anubius it is. And yeah, it grows very well in all my aquariums. I actually find this stuff grows pretty fast for an Anubius. I'm not sure if the smaller varieties just grow faster, but yeah, I found I could probably get a few cuttings off this every few weeks, and I mean, that is pretty fast if you've ever kept Anubius before. So one of the reasons this stuff is so easy to care for is it can pretty much go in any sort of tropical water parameters. So usually you're going to want a temperature of about 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to want a pH anywhere between 6.5 to 7.5. In saying that, it is super hardy and it can practically go in any water parameters. It doesn't care if there's large fluctuations. Basically, as long as it's in water, it should grow well. Now, something super cool about this stuff is it can actually go with a wide variety of different aquarium fish. And the reason for that is because it's actually got super thick, sort of waxy leaves. And because they have those super thick leaves, it's actually very hard for fish to eat the Anubius or even just, I guess, pick at it. So yeah, a lot of the time you'll see Anubius in like African cichlid tanks, you'll see it in goldfish tanks, but obviously those are the larger varieties. But yeah, with that said, Anubius, particularly the dwarf varieties, are great little nano aquarium plants. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, I actually recently did a video on this stuff. We've got an awesome aquarium moss. We have Subwastatung. So in my previous video that I did on this stuff, I was calling it Subwastatung, but someone commented and said it's with a V, so like Subwastatung. But still, I don't really know how to say it, so I'm just going to start calling it freshwater seaweed. And yeah, so if you've never seen this freshwater seaweed before, it literally looks like freshwater seaweed. It's an absolutely crazy looking aquarium plant. Definitely one of the more unique plants that you can get for your aquarium. And I think it's a little bit misunderstood. I used to think that this stuff was very hard to care for, although like I've mentioned in a lot of my videos, I got this stuff from like a tiny little cutting, I guess, and it's just absolutely flourished in my aquarium. I've got some in here, and in pretty much all my other tanks as well. So the reason this stuff is so great for a nano aquarium is you can pretty much choose how big you want it to be. So once your little bunch of freshwater seaweed gets too big for your aquarium, you can very easily just pick off a little bit, put it in another tank, and just keep your nice little Subwastatung bunch small. So because of that, obviously it's great for those smaller size setups. And another great thing about this stuff is it actually is pretty fast growing. I've grown all of this behind me here that you can see in probably, I don't know, maybe 3 months. Honestly, probably a little bit more, maybe 5 months. And yeah, it's absolutely flourished like I mentioned. And another great thing about it is it's absolutely so easy to care for. So as for water parameters for this stuff, you're gonna want a temperature of about 20 to 26 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to want a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. So something I would recommend if you are keeping this is make sure you're not keeping it in any high flow aquariums. And the reason for that is because it doesn't really root into the substrate, and it does take quite a while for it to actually attach to surfaces in your aquarium. And that's just because it's got very small little hook-like roots. So it can very easily be picked up by fast flow in your aquarium and, you know, just pushed all around the place. But yeah, with that being said, Subwastatung, or freshwater seaweed, is another great nano aquarium plant. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, we have another one that's pretty iconic for nano aquariums. We have Cryptpava. So obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of different species of cryptocoreans out there, but Cryptpava is, I believe, the smallest growing species of crypt, which means it's absolutely perfect for a nano aquarium. So one of the reasons it does stay pretty small is because it's extremely slow growing. It's probably one of the more slow growing crypts as well. And yeah, that's just why it does say pretty small in your aquarium. It does have the potential to get pretty big, but that will take quite a while just because, like I said, it's extremely slow growing. So this stuff is pretty compatible with a wide variety of different aquarium fish. You don't want anything that's going to eat it, so things like goldfish, obviously not. I mean, you're probably not going to be keeping goldfish in a nano aquarium anyway, but any of those nano aquarium fish, tetras, pygmy cories, cherry shrimp, rasboras, any of those will go absolutely fine with crypts. And something great about this stuff, and I guess the other plants that I've already mentioned, is that they grow really well in low lighting, which means you don't need a very expensive, intense light. You can literally just have one of these little eBay lights like I've got, and it's perfect. It grows them perfectly well. So this plant is another one that's pretty easy to care for. Obviously, it doesn't require any crazy lighting, and it doesn't require any crazy water parameters either. So as for temperature for this stuff, usually you're going to want a temperature of about 20 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to want a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. Something you will need to do with this stuff if you don't have CO2 injection in your aquarium is making sure you're fertilizing. It does require quite a bit of nutrients to flourish in your aquarium, and most crypts do. So yeah, if you can provide some sort of liquid fertilizer or even root tabs, that will help the growth a lot. But yeah, with that being said, Cryptpava is another great nano aquarium plant species, and I would highly recommend it. Moving on to the next species of plant, we've got one that I've only just recently started keeping and I absolutely love it. We have Dwarf Valisineria. So before we actually get onto this, I will just say I'm very sweaty and I'm sorry about that. It's absolutely freaking hot here, particularly in the fish room. It's so humid in here, so yeah, I'm sorry if I'm like dripping in sweat. Anyway, as for the Dwarf Valisineria, it's a plant I absolutely love. Like I said, I've only just started keeping this stuff, and yeah, it's absolutely awesome. So there's a few different varieties of Dwarf Valisineria. I think there's Valisineria nana, there's Valisineria americana, I think. And yeah, there's obviously a few more species that are dwarf growers as well. Now, Valisineria itself, just as a whole, is one of the easiest aquarium plants to grow. If you don't know what it is, it's basically like a seaweed looking plant. I've actually just got some here behind me. It's like a really tall growing plant, and yeah, it's just a great, cool looking aquarium plant. But yeah, like I was saying, it's probably one of the easiest aquarium plants to grow in general. It can go with a wide variety of aquarium fish, so it can definitely go with any of those sorts of nano aquarium fish. It can also go in a wide variety of water parameters. And as for temperature for this stuff, you should be keeping it in a temperature of around 20 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to want a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. So if you are planning on using this in your aquarium, I'd highly recommend trying to plant it at the back of your tank, just because it is relatively fast growing, even the dwarf varieties. And because of that, you don't want it just growing in the front of your tank and blocking off everything. I've actually got mine growing in the front of the tank, but it's not going to be there for a long time, so I'm not really worried about it. But yeah, if you want more of a permanent setup, then definitely put the Valisineria near the back or mid ground. And yeah, that'll just stop it from blocking out your whole nano aquarium. But yeah, with that being said, Dwarf Valisineria varieties are another great little nano aquarium plant, and I would highly recommend them. Moving on to the next species of plant on our list, we have another rhizomial plant, one of my favorite aquarium plants. We have Bulbus. So the reason I think Bulbus makes a great nano aquarium plant is because it's actually pretty slow growing. I've got quite a bit of this stuff. I absolutely love it. Like I've said in a lot of my videos before, it's probably one of my favorite plants. It looks absolutely insane. It's kind of like a mixture between like an Anubius, a Java fern, and just like a fern that's growing in the forest. It's one of the coolest looking aquarium plants in my opinion, and it's definitely great for nano tanks. So this stuff definitely has the potential to outgrow a nano tank and get absolutely huge, but as long as you're cutting it regularly and just pruning it and making sure it doesn't get too big, then it definitely makes a great plant for your nano aquarium. And like I said, it is relatively slow growing, at least in my experience, so because of that, it doesn't really suddenly take over your aquarium without you even noticing. As for water parameters for this stuff, I find it to be pretty easy to care for, and usually you're going to want a temperature of about 22 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. But yeah, with that being said, Bulbus is definitely another great little nano aquarium plant, and I would highly recommend it. Moving on to the final species of plant on our list, we have one that's a little bit more uncommon here in Australia. We have Bulbus. So I've never actually kept Bulbus, but if you don't know what it is, it's basically an Anubius. It's just got a little bit of a different color. So usually Boosts are more like brown purplish, whereas Anubius are a lot more green. And yeah, like I said, it's a little bit harder to come by here in Australia, which makes it a little bit more expensive. But if you want to completely deck out your Nano Aquarium, then definitely get some Boosts. It's like a major flex. So yeah, Boost is another rhizomial plant, very similar to the Anubius like I mentioned, except usually Bucephalandra species are a lot smaller, and they only really stay around that like Anubius nana size. They don't get too big at all. There's probably a few species that do get quite large, but most of them are pretty small growing species, so they're absolutely perfect for a Nano Aquarium. Another great thing about these guys is they, much like the Anubius, have those very thick leaves, which means they can go with quite a few different aquarium fish, and they can 100% go with all those nano fish perfectly fine. As for water parameters for this stuff, I'd recommend a temperature of around 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to want a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5. This is another aquarium plant that actually thrives in low light. You don't want to keep it in too high light just because it can grow algae over the leaves if it's in very intense light, and that can just strangle the plant and completely kill it. So it's best to sort of have this stuff in low light, or just try and keep it near the bottom of your aquarium where the light gets diffused before it actually reaches it. But yeah, with that being said, if you can find it, Boost would definitely be another great Nano Aquarium plant for your Nano Aquarium. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe. And while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. We've got a Boxing Day sale on there at the moment, and that's going to end pretty soon, so make sure you check it out before that ends. But yeah, with that being said, thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.